Today is November 14th. Let's call this Oscoda Township regular board meeting to order. It is 7:01. Sorry, I got my gavel back. All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Everybody could stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can we start with roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings? Here. Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
Present.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Worcester?
Present.
Ms. Richards?
Here. Okay, I believe we have one agenda addition this evening.
Yes.
Okay,
I would like to request to be put under other, and that will be for grant letter of support request from Lake State Railway.
okay.
No other
No other-
additions?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. I would make a motion that we accept the addition as other number 6 for the letter of support for Lake State Railway as
Support.
presented.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. McGuire, to amend the agenda with that one addition. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings? Yes. Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. We do not have any public presentations this evening, correct? Okay. We have the first public comment section on the agenda. This public comment section is reserved for anything that is an agenda item, so it must be an agenda item to discuss it at the first public comment. Do we have any comment cards?
I have one, and
Okay.
it's Kelly Brown.
Okay, if you could come to the podium, please, Kelly.
Kelly Brown, I live in North Oscoda, if that exists. Just a couple of things from the agenda I wanted to bring up. On the budget, I know that's under your work session minutes. I was reviewing that, and I know you're not done with it yet, but I wanted to find out if there is an opportunity for the budget to include any sort of dollar allocation for events, you know, that the township puts on instead of the chamber, or do you contribute to the chamber, or how does that aspect of the budget work, if it works at all?
Okay. We don't host events ourselves, no.
I'm not talking about hosting, I'm just I know like we contribute to the fireworks, and I would consider that an event, a 4th of July event. But we seem to be really slow in the winter. And I just think there's an opportunity if we could come up with some new things to draw people in the winter, especially with the new hotel coming. We have the last stage of the Iosco Exploration Trail coming in. If there's a way to link downtown, I think, Bill, you talked about it before, about bringing in the four-wheelers and some of the snowmobile crowd in the winter. So I just didn't know where that would fall in your budget, or if it does, but I wanted to bring that up as you're finalizing the 2023. I'm assuming you're getting close. If there's any way to build in something so we could help promote downtown during the winter months, and maybe even encourage a little bit more participation in the summer events. There's some different things, you know, out there, but obviously funding is always a challenge. The other thing was under subcommittees for reports and projects. I know that there was recently, Todd Dickerson from the EIC had mentioned about the survey and how it was published on November 1st. So I went in there and took a read from it, and then I looked at a couple of the other surveys that were posted. And one of the interesting things is that we had 889 respondents, which out of the surveys that were posted prior, that was the largest amount of respondents. So I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at the survey, but there were some really, really insightful and contributing comments in a couple of the different questions about what takes people out of the area, you know, which I thought would be really helpful in the planning process. I know everyone on the board is in some way, shape, or form sitting on other committees, whether it be the EIC, with like Bill Palmer, I saw him last week, or the Planning Commission, or some of these subcommittees. The last thing with regards to the subcommittees that I wanted to bring up that I saw during the EIC committee last week is they talked about these window clings, and I know it was brought up here a couple weeks ago, but I am not in favor of spending taxpayer dollars on window clings for privately owned businesses that aren't upholding their end of the business. They're not keeping their properties in good-looking order and things like that. So from a budget standpoint, I don't know if that's going into 2023, but I don't think any taxpayer money should be spent on those. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. All right, any other comment cards for the first public comment? Amy? Any other public comment?
No.
No, okay. All right, then we do have one other public comment section that's at the end of the agenda. And you can comment on anything that we talked about tonight or anything for that matter. So then moving on to consent agenda, we have a few approval of meeting minutes. First on is the regular meeting minutes from October 24th. Were there any questions or comments on those?
Yes,
Okay,
I have several. On page 3 of the minutes, well, in several areas, we have people making or supporting motions that weren't in attendance.
one that I reviewed very well.
The first one is the row engineering invoice 105587 has Mr. Cummings supporting. He was absent. The next one is invoice 105590. Ms. McGuire was supporting. She was absent. Row invoice 105613. That one is was for wastewater pump station, and it indicates that that money would come from the C2R2. That's for the water mains. This would come out of the CWSRF, not the C2R2. And then the row engineering voice 105621, again, Mr. Cummings was supporting, who was absent. And the next invoice, 105625, again, Mr. Cummings supporting. The next one is the Oscoda Phase 5 water main, pay request number 2, is Mr. Wustbarth.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually did most of these corrections just before the election and gave them to him, but somehow I don't think that I think the wrong one is in the packet.
Yeah, I think
So
I
I think
sent
we
you
should
guys
just,
the other ones.
yeah, because I had gone through in there and I
These
noticed.
have been corrected?
Yeah, I did submitted things to correct them because I noticed the same things.
For the
So
names?
that's why I didn't look at this one real close.
Did it also correct for the C2R2
I
funding?
believe so, but I think that we should pull these off the agenda and
Okay.
put them back
put 'em on
on
the
for
next one.
next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's too many that need to be corrected there.
Yeah, there were a lot.
So, yeah, I had gotten them to Josh before the election, because I knew he wasn't gonna have time during the election, so I didn't even really dive into them, in the packet, because I thought that what I had submitted were incorporated, so, not that I'm throwing you under the bus by saying that, I just.
No,
I'm
I
saying.
pulled it up on here, and that's when I had the laptop changed out, because I have 2 sets in here, and the ones that I gave you guys are not the corrected ones, but
Okay.
instead of going over it all, we can represent them and review
Yeah,
at the next meeting.
yep, I think that would be best. Okay, so we'll pull the regular meeting minutes out, for sure. What about the budget work session meeting minutes from November 4th? Okay, we have under finance, payment of bills, we have the prepaid from November 1st in the amount of $97,559.94.
I have a question on page 17 of the packet. Let's see, where is that? Under Department 262 elections, it has the assessor scanner and the assessor copier. I don't know why those would be under elections for the assessor, those 2 items.
Page 17 on the packet.
Yes. Under elections.
Yep, I'm looking at them. I'm waiting for Josh to,
Which check run is that on and what page? Because mine's not presenting in page.
Page 17.
yeah, it's actually, it looks like it's on the November 8th check run, not the November 1st.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
those two.
November 8th.
yep. So, yeah, right here. So you didn't have anything for the November 1st check run then?
No.
Okay,
No.
so the November 8th check run is the one that we're looking at. And I see it, it's under elections, it says assessor, copier, and scanner,
Last two.
last two, roughly $175 or so, total between two. Yeah, it's the lease payments. It says lease payments for the copier. It would be helpful if you saw mine.
I labeled them wrong.
Just have to review it when you get back to your office, Jeff?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it sideways, I don't get to.
Great.
turn it like
Any
you
other
guys
ones
do.
then on that November 8th bill?
Yeah, on page 19 of the packet, maybe this is correct, but under Old Orchard Park, it has invoice for weather stripping for $1,930. That's a lot of weather stripping.
I saw that. That is a lot of weather stripping.
I know winter's coming, but
Were they like stripping the tents or?
It's on which page, Bill?
17, 104.
19.
One, or I think you said page 19.
page 19 of the
Mine's
packet.
like
Oh,
skipping.
I think you might have just ran out of space to put other items there by the looks of it. That whole line is full.
I can't even find it.
It's about middle of the page on page 19. Find it?
Oh, yeah. Is that the whole invoice maybe from,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, see how wide that line space is here? He's used it all.
Yeah, there was more on there, it just ran out of the space on that invoice.
Okay, so there's more than just weather stripping.
Yeah, I only get just enough room to put those in there, so that's why you see a lot of the slashes and everything, so I try to make sure you guys know what it's for, as well
so,
as the invoice numbers being in that column.
so I guess just maybe jot down that invoice number, which is 253161 from Asable Hardware. Well, I guess, I don't really know now. I just said that invoice number, but then when you look over, that's under invoice line description, but when you look to the far right, it says invoice number, and then it says 103.
That's the date for the
Mhm.
invoice. That's the
Oh,
date of the
okay.
invoice.
No, the invoice is that one you had in there,
All
that's why those go in, because that's one big one.
Under the November 8th run, Bill or anybody else? Okay, then going on to the check run for November 15th, the amount on that is $20,216.30. Any questions on that run?
I have one question on that, on page 22 of the packet. Again, under Old Orchard Park, it has a late fee to Pepsi-Cola for $57.95. I don't understand why we have late fees.
Yeah, that one was just an invoice they had put in just as a late fee, it was a separate invoice that they had put in for. There was no explanation as to what it was for, but they had put that one in at the park.
So that would be a question for the park to answer.
So was the payment made late?
It just said a late fee, there was just a late fee charge, so I don't know if it was on a payment, on return. Their Pepsi checks in and out every week, so we normally have the this was a separate invoice from Pepsi that just said late fee on it. that's in there.
But Old Orchard Park coded it and approved it.
Yeah, I could ask them what
So,
it was
yeah.
for beyond that.
So
Okay.
they need to explain why they have a late fee. Okay, any other questions on that check run? All right, then moving on to the CWSRF checking report. Anything on that? Well, we have two there's two CWR, God, too many letters. CWSRF checking. And then two DWRF checking reports. Any questions on all four of those, I guess?
I will note that there was a couple other CWSRF invoices that we're still waiting to pay, and we approved those subject to receiving the funds, and we have not received them yet. But checking daily with Tammy and Melinda to see if we're gonna get that soon.
Okay. All right, so with those few things that we need to check into, along with removal of the regular meeting minutes from October 24th until the next meeting, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Right, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire to approve the consent agenda, again, by removing, with removal of the regular meeting minutes from October 24th to the next meeting, and then looking into the answers to the questions that Bill proposed. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to subcommittee reports and project updates. We don't have any on the agenda this evening, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then we have the superintendent's report. First on is the Kings Corner Road, although this threw me off because it says purchase. In theory, it should be sale, because we're selling it.
Correct.
Somebody's purchasing it. Okay. All right.
Okay, your packet contains a purchase agreement for the previously approved LOI for purchase from Mr. Herb Travis for a portion of township-owned property on Kings Corner Road totaling 4.3 acres. Upon receiving the survey, the total acreage adds up to 4.46 acres. I know this is a minuscule amount, but wanted to make the board aware of this discrepancy before we proceed with the purchase agreement. I have spoken with the township's attorney, and she had advised that the board can move to approve the sale with the amended acreage and continue with the resolution and purchase agreement as amended in the motion. I would ask that the board move to amend the acreage in the purchase agreement from 4.3 acres to 4.6 acres and approve the purchase agreement with the superintendent and clerk as signatories at closing.
Okay. Were there any other questions then besides that change?
Where's the location of the additional acreage?
I
West
would have
side,
to
south
actually
side, east
look
side?
at the survey and go
Just curious.
over.
Just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure what side it was
I
on.
believe it's just to the south and it was where the estimated stakes are gonna be. But he does have the 66-foot wide easement listed in here, so that'll be documented to the township.
For access?
Yeah.
I was wondering if the difference was in that 66-foot easement, if that would make the difference.
That might have been some of it too.
That
I
maybe-
don't believe it was because, the attorney had asked to make sure that 66 feet is what we had actually requested. I believe it's in the back somewhere, in the back part of the property. When he measured, he went by, previous markers, and when they actually redid the survey, that was where the discrepancy was.
Oh,
It happens sometimes.
yeah, that happens.
We had it as approximate when we approved it the last time.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so with that change, do we have a motion then to approve?
I would make a motion to amend the acreage in the purchase agreement from 4.3 acres to 4.46 acres and approve the purchase agreement with the superintendent and clerk as signatories at closing.
Okay, is there support?
Support Worcester.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Wusterbarth to approve that change in the acreage as well as all the other language in the purchase agreement. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried. Moving on then to the fire truck purchase request.
All right. At a board meeting held March 28th, 2022, the Township Board authorized Chief McGregor to begin writing specifications for the purchase of a new pumper rescue truck. For the past 25 years, the Township has exclusively purchased Pierce vehicles due to the uniformity and ease of transition from truck to truck. After several months of working on this, we are ready to take the next steps in the purchasing of the vehicle through Pierce Halt Fire. The total cost at this time, if ordered before November 28th, 2022, will be $852,525, and purchasing options have been provided to you in the packet as well. I would request that Chief McGregor given permission to use the preferred vendor status, in this case Pierce Halt, and begin the purchasing process for the pumper rescue truck through Pierce Halt Fire. This action takes board approval.
Okay, well, I believe that Al indicated he wouldn't be here because it's,
I have Mr. Rich Radowski
Right.
with the fire
because
department.
it's some special day tomorrow. So, if you want to come up, Rich, to the podium, just in case anybody has any questions, or? Thank you for coming.
You're welcome, thank you.
I appreciate it.
You can
Does-
obviously see I'm not a hunter,
because
because I'm here.
Either that or you got your limit with bow season, so you're not worried about rifle, one or the other, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. And I know there was a work session when I was absent, that may have come up, but what's the age of the two trucks that we're replacing?
I believe the one we're replacing is I think the 2001. I'm not sure exactly on the age. It's our oldest pumper that we have in the fleet right now.
Okay, so 20 years, so it's kind of,
Yes.
life. And then this is gonna be 2-in-1. I know we talked about this in March. So what kind of customization is on this truck?
What we're gonna be able to do with this is replace our rescue truck and a pumper with it, so we'll be able to haul all of our rescue equipment along with fighting structure fires with it.
Okay.
And we'll be able to sell the two trucks that we're taking out of?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and it'll open up some space that we really need to in the fire station.
Yep.
And it's a 3-year, I mean, it's been discussed before, but it takes 3 years
Right,
for this truck to come in.
yeah.
Right.
Those were my questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
I know we talked a little bit about it at the work session, but I'm gonna be working with the CPA to make sure that we have the funds. Some of the money that is in the cash fund is actually in investments. So we might be borrowing a little bit from the general fund until we collect some of the money from the millage this winter, which starts December 1st, and then just pay ourselves back, actually, instead of cashing in the CDs or moving the money out of the investments when they're making some interest.
So none of this is gonna come out of general fund?
I will confirm that. We might be borrowing it from the general fund, but giving it back to it.
But if we borrow, it'll go back, so it's gonna be a
Correct.
net,
Right.
net
Yes.
zero.
Yes, because that's the fire millage money, that's what that's for.
Yeah.
And I have talked to Tammy, and she's talked to Chief McGregor about some of the outstanding bills that they have, that we are trying to make sure that they have enough money to cover that, and so that they completely understand that they are gonna be out of money for a little while, so.
I did also reach out to Oscoda Township for their part, which is, I believe, 23%, just over 23%, and they said that they can upfront their portion of the fire truck as well.
Can
which
they do
is-
that in this year, Tammy, or is it
Yes.
next year? So in this year, they can do that?
Yes,
I sure hope so.
we hope so.
I don't
Yes.
think they're like super excited about it, but yes, they were going to.
How do you think that truck is gonna perform? Are you excited?
I'm really curious to see how it's gonna perform.
I mean,
because-
they went all the way down to, I was reading through there, I mean, they went all the way down to the handholds for ingress and egress. They've line itemed everything, so.
Yeah.
We worked really hard to try to cut out all the frills that we don't need and include all the safety equipment that we do need. And it's gonna be a really nice truck, I believe. Hopefully we don't have to use it.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
right, any other questions?
Just curious, Rich, what's the age of the rescue truck that we're replacing?
I'm not sure, I believe it's mid-nineties.
The 90s?
We purchased that used.
Right.
I can't remember, it's been a long time now.
So we're replacing 2 trucks?
Yes.
With this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I am going to take the opportunity to plug the millage that was passed by the public. That's what is supporting these purchases that we've been doing for the capital improvements for the fire department. And so you can see the things that we are able to supply for the community and that these guys get to use to help do their job while they're volunteering, actually, their volunteer job.
Yeah.
So, and that renewal will be coming up again in 2025.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that without this, for
Yep,
sure.
absolutely.
Or
So
with-
thank you to the public for that.
Yes, without that, I guess I said it backwards. But, all right, so with that, do we have a motion to approve?
I have just one, not for Rich, but
Okay.
thank you, Rich, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you very much, Rich.
So just for the board, so I see that, we're gonna get a discount of 48,000 if we pay it by November 28th. So my question is on the accounting side of it. Are we totally expensing this in this year?
Yes.
Okay. As long as we have the funds.
We'll make it work.
We have 30 days from the time of the signed contract to do the financing as well. So it would be after we sign the contract and then 30 days from there.
Okay, so for the next meeting, well, we've got
The
last meeting
28th
in
is the
November,
final day.
right? I guess, can we know that Asabo's gonna be ponying up this year, so it helps Jamie and Josh?
I can gladly reach out to Mr. Schreier and get a confirmation email and send it out to everybody, if you would like to do it that way.
Yep.
Sounds
I'll
good
be
to
able
me.
to give you the details after.
Okay.
Yep.
As long as it's a net zero, that's fine. Glad we have the cash.
Well, I would make a motion to approve Fire Chief McGregor use preferred vendor status and begin the purchasing process for the new pumper/rescue truck through Pierce Halt Fire.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire, to authorize Chief McGregor to go forward with that purchase. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wushtabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. All right, thank you again very much for coming in.
Thanks, Rich.
You're more than welcome to take off. Apparently, I didn't have to tell you
Yeah, I
twice.
can just leave it.
Yeah, right. All right. So, next on the agenda is the request for authorization to proceed with preparation of bid documents for the cured in-pipe lining at Mission Drive, the RFP.
Okay, attached for the board's review is a memo from the township engineer regarding the lining of Mission Street storm sewer. As you all may or may not know, we have had an ongoing root intrusion issue with this particular storm drain that either floods the road at the corner of 8th and Mission or during the winter months causes a huge icing issue, creating a dangerous situation for drivers. Through ongoing talks with the Air Force, they have agreed to provide funding for the slip lining of the Mission Street storm sewer with hopes of starting early 2023 and completion by June of 2023. I would ask that the board give approval to the superintendent to proceed with Rowe Engineering to create and prepare all related documents for the bid RFP process. Once complete, the RFP and bid documents will be brought back to the board for final review and approval to proceed.
Okay. And I'm assuming you're gonna add some more to that, Rick? Or
I'm
just
just
answer
available
questions.
if you have any questions.
All right, okay.
I have a couple of questions. See, we're only slip lining 170 feet of the potentially 630 feet, if I'm reading this correctly.
Part of that still has to be determined as far as putting together the bid book and the contract that Roe will be looking at. So the exact length is yet to be determined.
Oh, I thought in the last one, it said install one full-length 18-inch CIPP liner using of 179 linear feet. There are two items on here, one for the 12-inch pipe and one for 15 for repairs, faulty joints, and cracked pipes. Those are only 3-foot sections that are,
Right. The information you have here is what was provided to me, or to Tammy, as far as for my review, and by the Air Force. So we want to verify exactly the length that needs to be repaired and lined. So that length could vary from this memo to the final bid book that was put together by Rowe. And working with Ryan Morrish out in the field as far as where he came up with those numbers and such as, so this is more for information only, a ballpark.
okay.
So I don't wanna commit to that it's only 170 foot, it could be 200 feet or 220, or it could be 150, once we take a look at it.
And how did they determine that there were several of these deficient joints and cracked pipes?
That's part of the discussion that we still have to have with him, so.
So we don't know how they determined that they were damaged? I mean, is it through video?
Assume from, they've televised it several times.
I
Yeah,
know
the-
we've
I
run
think the
video.
last video that they completed was 2017, I think.
Was that
So-
when we had someone come and do that?
Yes, I believe so. And that
So-
was part of what I looked at back when I was with Rowe as far as the evaluation of the Mission Street GAC plant. So again, even in that report that I put together back then, was that this would have to be reevaluated prior to any project going forward in the field, so.
So we paid for that visual sighting.
I believe so, back in 2017.
There was two done. And I believe the township had theirs done last at the end of 17.
That we paid for.
But that was, I think that was the Skeel storm sewer at that time. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, there was two that we looked at, Skeel and Mission, and I thought both of them were on there, but
I
Can't
might be, and that might be.
right, so,
And those were projects that the township paid for.
correct. As far as
So-
what I understand from 2017.
So for part of this RFP, is the Air Force gonna pay for this visual
Yes.
scanning of the inside of the lines? That'll be
Yes.
part of the
Right.
contract?
Right, and that's part of verifying the exact length of repair and the type of repair that's needed, so.
Okay.
And this right now that we're asking for is just to be able to go forward with, to create the RFP and the bid books.
Right.
Further investigation, so.
And so there'll be more information that'll have to come out before you can actually put the RFP together.
Great, I think, Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says, once you guys, Rowe does their information, checks out the information, that last line here under your action item says, once complete, the RFP and bid documents would be back to the board for final review and approved.
Yes,
Okay,
Correct.
yes.
So this is just approval to get the process going.
yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, so they gotta do all their,
Due
check it all
diligence,
out.
yeah. I do think the Air Force did pay for one, was when I was still an employee. I remember seeing the video, made me nauseous actually watching it go through, because it was like many feet. But,
I just have one question for, I guess, Tim. I mean, in here, it's one of the last sentences, based on the agreement with the Air Force, the township will hold the contract and with the contract provide necessary oversight. As mentioned, this is all to be reimbursed by the U.S. Air Force. Have they agreed to a contract that, because I know we've had issues with them paying
Not with anything I've ever been involved in. You'd have to ask Tammy.
Yes,
Okay,
in its entirety, right down to
Correct.
oversight.
okay.
okay, any other questions, discussion? Great, I make a motion that we approve, moving forward with, authorizing, is it Rowe or Rick?
It would be row engineering.
Row.
Superintendent to proceed with row
So,
engineering.
okay, the super,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, I lost the,
Look at that here.
okay. So I'll make a motion that, we authorize the superintendent to proceed with Row Engineering to create and prepare all the related documents for the bid RFP process. Once complete, that will come back to the board for final approval.
Support, Sutton.
Okay, there's a motion by Richards, support by Mr. Sutton. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurschenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Administrative Services Specialist position hire request.
Okay, at the October 10, 2022 Township Board meeting, the board had requested that a committee consisting of myself, Mr. Woosterbarth, Mr. Sutton, and Ms. McGuire gather to discuss wages and compensation for the hiring of Ms. Dix for the Administrative Services Specialist. Ms. McGuire, Mr. Sutton, and I met once, and Mr. Woosterbarth has submitted his suggestions. Your packet also contains a memo from the clerk, Mr. Sutton, regarding suggested wage, job description, and benefits for Ms. Dix for your review and possible approval. So we've all, this morning, Josh, Jamie, and I talked again with different solutions. I think in the memo, it says 20% for the treasurer's office, and I had requested from Jamie this morning to add up the hours that she would need for her, or she would normally have a seasonal clerical for, which would be just slightly more than 20 hours. So it'd be more like 30, which it would be 30%, which would be 624 hours, which would include vacations and tax time, whatever she would normally need. And then a 20% for Mr. Sutton for elections, and 50% for administrative throughout.
Okay, I know I emailed earlier, the committee, because I was a little confused by what was in the packet. Because I read, how I read it was that you were proposing, her salary to be what it currently was in her,
That was
Position.
the initial thought.
okay. Because I didn't see anything in the packet that indicated anything different.
I didn't have anything
Okay,
except for, we had two separate meetings, and Mr. Moosterbarth unfortunately couldn't make the meeting that we did have.
okay.
So I was hoping that, with some discussion on the board, we could come up with a solid.
All right, so we're proposing, I guess, just, you guys talked today and you're thinking she'd be in what grade level or what classification?
She would be under, we'll let Josh do it.
Okay,
Yeah, it should be under clerical assistant at step 3, which would be the 1502 an hour and 31,241.60 a year. And then we just had that breakdown on the percentages on how that would be budgeted out to be billed to the township. And what we did is just looked at previous employees we had brought in to the administrative area, what steps we had used with other people in there. And we had been between 1 and 2 on the higher end people, but this one coming in is just a clerical assistant. We went to that step 3, just in honor of almost, I think she's been with us almost 20 years over with Nancy, but that's what, that would be the appropriate place to start her at that 1502 and transition with everything we've done before and keeping it uniform.
okay. Do you want to add anything to that? Other two committee members?
I'm just asking her Josh, Jamie, and Tammy in agreement with that?
I am with that, yeah, with
With
the
the 15,
wages,
yeah.
yeah. The next line on there, besides the wages, the benefits including vacation to transfer for seniority, I disagree with that. It's a contracted position. It wasn't a lateral move for an employee of the township. So I think, and because other people that have been moved out of the assessor's office, they lost their vacation time, I think that it would be a little biased to have one person lose it and one person get to keep theirs. So I think that they should start over just like everybody else has to do.
What is her current wage? Do we know that?
Her current wage is $18.92.
1892?
$18.92.
I will note that a few other people in the building that have gone from contracted employees to township employees have all taken a pay cut when hired with the township.
But the difference is she's gonna end up with the township benefits as well.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know what her benefits were like with, I mean, Nancy provided benefits, right?
Same. They were the same as what we provide.
They are the same?
That's what we used to provide, I think, weren't they? Weren't they better? Like ours used to be?
I think her pensions probably was better. But she still has Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right.
Right.
She will have like the HSA now that she didn't have before, but
I mean, I guess I hear where you're coming from in regard to the vacation time, but yet I don't feel that she should have to start at square one, maybe not, you know.
I'm in agreement with that. I don't think
Yeah.
she should be, she's been here a long time and a valued employee from what I've been told.
Right.
And I don't think that, that's not something, I think we've done it in the past from what I was told. I know
Yeah.
we discussed this a few meetings ago. That's not something I'm wanting to do. I don't think that we should take that away.
I guess I'm not sure what was your township decisions related to these situations. Could somebody give me an example?
I can tell you when I was an employee and I went from part-time to full-time, I had to start completely, I mean, and I transitioned, I had to start completely over, but yeah. It was extremely frustrating to not have any vacation time. So after already being an employee for a few years.
Right, but you had to
So-
do it.
Yes, I did, and I wasn't happy about it. So, I mean, I don't think it's a great thing. I'm not saying that she should really start, maybe at, I don't know how many weeks would she be getting right now if we said that it was level. Would it be 3 weeks?
if we
If we, what Josh indicated, what did you indicate,
We
Josh?
put her
that it
in
would
step
be?
level
3.
three,
Yeah,
Step 3, but I think it's 2
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
instead of 1.
And right now she's got 4 weeks, so, with
Oh,
Nancy, working
okay.
with
So
Nancy,
really it
she's
is
got
a
4.
yeah, so we're not keeping her at 4 weeks, what she's got now, but it would be 2 weeks instead of 1 week,
Correct.
right?
But weren't we told where we had other employees where we accepted that and did not hit them on their time and gave them credit?
Yes,
I distinctly remember that when we discussed this.
when Melinda hired in my assistant, I started her at, the board approved, at step 3.
So, yeah, so she got to keep some of her time.
Well, it was basic, while she was contracted through FMV, I don't know what she had for benefits. 3 weeks.
So I think she actually lost time, if I remember right.
Yeah. Oh, we have sick time, yes.
Yeah.
Bill, you got any comments?
I just want to make sure everybody's treated fairly.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, it just seems like it's hard enough not to swallow to take a $3 an hour pay cut plus vacation cut and everything else. That seems a bit extreme for somebody that's actually worked here in our office for 20 years, or however long she's been employed.
Because it's still gonna be a decrease in vacation time, at which, I mean, that it is what it is. Or, we're a government
It just seems
entity.
to me
We're
like
not taking it all away.
It's,
Yeah.
no,
Making her
no,
start
I
over.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but it's
Right.
kind of a double whammy to cut somebody's wages by $3 an hour and cut their vacation time
Well, she doesn't have to take the position either. She can get unemployment if she wants to.
So basically, we're talking the difference of a week, correct? Because you're
Well,
proposing
she's
level
at
3, which
4
is,
and she would get 2, so.
well, that's what I'm saying. But
Does
Jamie's
the-
proposing that it would be starting at the very beginning of,
No.
isn't that what you're
no.
proposing?
No, she would,
She would start at the step 3, which she would get 2 weeks
yeah,
instead of just 1.
Oh, well, yeah,
which is just where we've been before.
Right.
How long
Okay.
is a step?
so 2 weeks. All right, I'm sorry, maybe I
The
misunderstood.
steps every year.
I thought you were proposing that she
So
was
that could
starting
change.
at
I
the
could
1.
have to see when, I don't know when the next step up is, Josh.
Well, that
For
goes,
vacations.
they have them by their dates in there.
Okay, so it'd be step 3 is what is circled on my chart here.
Right,
Okay, so it's step 3 at 15:02, and it's 2 weeks of vacation.
correct.
Okay. And that's what you're proposing, Josh?
Yes.
Okay,
And that's only if we give it to her. If somebody else, if she decides not to take it and somebody else comes into that position, they would start at step 1.
correct.
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
just checking.
Okay, is there any further discussion, or is there a motion?
Yeah, just a
Or is
quick
there any
question.
other things down as, the proposed thoughts, anything on any of the other things that are on the list?
Question. What is she doing now? Is she still working? Township, or is she no longer working?
Nancy is wrapping up a project, and Helen had been there. I didn't see her today. But just for
But
the
she's
board,
been
I mean,
there.
does the
Okay.
board understand what she was doing there? I mean, did everybody get a chance to reach out and talk to her?
Yeah.
She was a description clerk,
Yep.
where she changed the names and addresses for people and verified the deeds, and that was pretty much all she did. So I just want to,
Well, she also
Some of-
took. she
I'm
also took-
sorry?
Yeah, she also took care of the, making sure that people had their homestead farms. So she made sure that that was all in place, because she's the one who sent them out. I know when I had
yeah.
mine, that's what she did.
Oh, yeah, she mailed
Yeah.
out documents and
yep.
copies for people and stuff like that, yeah. Clerical duties, basic clerical duties. She's not, doesn't have an assessor status or anything, those type of, along that lines. No bachelor's degree, anything in that department whatsoever. I just wanted to, I know in the discussion, Steve wasn't able to be there, and obviously the board members weren't there too. On here, we were talking about putting a review after a year, because myself personally, after being in the building for 25 years myself in a couple of different apartments, I'm concerned about if there's actually the workload there for a full-time position, even though she's gonna be shared between all the departments. One of the things, like answering phones and directing calls to the appropriate departments. We've spent almost $80,000 on our phone system that we have from ATI, and that is there to do that job. You call, and then you pick your extension or your department, and the phone call goes directly to those departments. So there really shouldn't be a reason why she needs to answer the phone and distribute the phone calls, unless somebody's not answering their phone.
Well, the problem that comes in with that is that when people call in and they don't get the person on the phone for whatever department they called, they call back and hit another department, and then they call back and hit another department until they get somebody to talk to
That's
to
right,
transfer
because
them.
nobody's answering their phones. And I know that because I answer my phone and they ask for different departments.
Yeah, so they, what we're trying to, I think what they're trying to avoid or trying to fix is you shouldn't be getting those phone calls. There should be a gate, because the phone system is working the way it was designed. The people aren't following the directions. They're not leaving the message and waiting for the call back. They want to talk to somebody right now, and although we appreciate that sentiment, that's not always possible. And when they continue to call back and hit every department until they hit somebody on the phone, and then have you transfer them back to the same voicemail, then they leave the message.
So that person is gonna answer the phone and take a message then and distribute the message?
No, I think that person would answer the phone and say, oh, okay, well, I can transfer you back there. But then when they call back and hit the button again, that
Yeah.
person answers the phone again, so they're getting the live representation that they're looking for. But she can tell them, hey, they're not in the office. You're gonna have to leave a message. They're not here. You can call back all day. They're supposed to be back at 3. She can provide information that voicemail does not offer. I don't think that, most people don't update their voicemails to let people know they're on vacation and stuff like that. Some
Right.
people do, but I think it would be a benefit.
Well, I mean, bottom line, it's a new position, that we're gonna have to feel through and see if there is enough work. And so having a evaluation would make sense, to make
Right.
sure that, I mean, I think that's important.
But
I mean, when we started talking about this, I mean, when I say I wanna take the name off of the position, we're not creating I mean, I guess in theory, we are creating a position for a person.
Yep.
But we need to make sure that this position is actually, justified, can be supported, and it's something that maybe it's gonna need to evolve into other departments or into other functions, we're not sure at this time. But, so I think it is extremely important to, set up an evaluating time period to make sure that we're not just,
But not, yeah,
Yeah.
and the evaluation should also encompass whether, the position itself, not necessarily the person therein.
that's what I'm,
Yeah.
again, we're trying to, I mean, by no fault of the assessing department did this occur, so.
But to me, all of
Yeah.
that should be left up to the superintendent, because she's gonna manage the position, and if there's not enough duties there, it's her responsibility to come back to us.
Right, which is,
So
I'm
how
just
she
letting
wants to
the,
manage that,
Yeah.
she'll
just-
be accountable.
I'm letting the board know the discussion that was had at our committee meeting, that's all. I'm
Yep.
just making sure the rest of the board understands that and the public.
Right, and I
Um,
appreciate that.
Yep.
And I'm struggling with the vacation for somebody who's been there for 20 years. She's gonna have to take a pay cut. This is nothing by fault of her own. It's a retirement by Nancy, and we had to go to outside services. I'm concerned. And big part of the reason of having somebody there is still to have somebody in that office maintaining records and somebody that can talk to and work with the new assessing office.
And
That's gonna be a big portion, and I just struggle that,
that was.
we're gonna have to cut her pay and we're gonna have to cut her benefits.
And I understand that. I mean, that was my concern when we first talked about this, honestly, but then with Fred being here, they went through the same thing, and the public adjusted to it. So I have been thinking about it for a while, actually. The second thing that another thing that we discussed in our committee meeting was the general person to direct public within the township hall. 90% of the people that come into the township hall, come in that door in the back, come right into the treasurer's office to pay their water bill, to pay their taxes, to get information, to do all kinds of things. They don't even make it down the hallway. So, giving directions, and if they need directions to the water department, we usually walk them down there, give them directions to where they gotta go. So that's kind of a mute point to me. Let's see. The only other thing on here was my concern about the no further need for the seasonal assistance in the treasurer's office. That's fine. However, the time that she's going to be working in the treasurer's office, she needs to be in the treasurer's office to wait on the customers that come in to pay their water bills, to be in there to take tax payments, to open the mail, those type of things. She can't be sitting in the assessor's office and have to go to the counter to wait on the people. That's what my seasonal person did. So it would be impossible for her to be able to do that sitting in a completely different office.
I see that as a logistics issue, though.
So,
That's-
yeah.
Steve, can you speak up? I can't hear you.
Oh, I said I see that as a logistics issue. When you walk in that back door, the first thing you see is that assessing window. So if she has to work and collect tax payments, why can't we set it up that she can do it right there?
Because then people would still be coming into the treasurer's office to pay
We can put a
also
sign up.
Or shut the
payments
door.
next door.
Yeah, that was
Well,
my
when it
question.
comes
is
straight
That's
in,
fine.
we can put it above too, what we're gonna have.
If we
to-
want, and Tammy, we talked about that at the committee meeting also, about that wall was created, that used to be the old library. They actually just put those walls up in there to take up space, sorry about, hit the microphone. And maybe opening up that whole corner and making it kind of like, I don't know how many of you have been in Oscoda townships, where they have the long counters so that you can talk to the assessor, you can do that, and maybe put even a doorway behind the counter, and she can go right in there and get their assessing stuff for forms if she needs them, and collect the money, and we balance it at the end of the day. I'm completely okay with that, actually. That would be all right with me.
But if her role is to be a receptionist, why wouldn't she just be positioned at the end of the hallway with that glass window that's there? And we maybe even take the glass window away for now, because I don't know whether that would be out of security or not, but but I think it's open, you can open it at least.
Yeah.
She's clearly got a receptionist role. She can do work in there while she's in that room. I don't.
Yeah, oh, well, yeah, I understand that. Do we wanna, she can take the, we wanna move the money down there, so she's taking all the payments? That's great.
Well, I don't understand the payments part. I thought she was assisting. I thought she was doing things like stuffing envelopes and things like that
Well, there's
nature,
that,
not
but we're
taking.
No, they
also
process the
using
mail,
her to help
taxes.
out the treasurer, which is what we were talking about when you get to the budget. There's times for the tax time and everything where they're working on stuff, and that's where that seasonal person literally comes in and takes payments at the counter.
I see. I thought the seasonal person was coming in and taking care of stuffing the envelopes in advance of the shipment, the mailing.
No,
That's
actually,
what
I have
recall.
volunteers that do
Yeah,
that.
volunteers do that. I mean, to me, that, I guess what Steve indicated, it's a new position, it's a flow. You're gonna actually have to discuss what the functions are and how does it flow. And maybe that means switching desks around or structure around,
Yeah,
but that can be done between the departments that are utilizing the person, so.
That can be done
yeah.
between Tammy, Josh, and
So I feel that, yeah, but,
And
but
Jamie.
again, we need to just come back to it to see how things are working. Cause I mean, with all due respect, Tammy's got a lot to do, so making sure somebody else is busy is, sometimes difficult to do. So, you know, you're gonna be doing a lot of other things, let alone keeping track of if, you know, that this position has enough to do. So I guess that's my concern, is we just need to regroup after we kinda have a plan here and, make sure.
We could gladly have the committee meet again
Oh, sure.
after
Absolutely.
Okay.
and try and finalize. That way, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like we really are. Not yet, anyway.
I
We
think
can
we're
all
getting
get
there.
together again.
We've always,
Yeah, I think we're down to logistics and some other decisions, but that could go to the committee. We could all meet and
Well,
discuss those.
right.
I don't think.
But
this-
we do need, like, the 1-year review we like, just because that gives us a full year to evaluate what we're doing,
Right.
what the benefits are, and if our people adjust like they did over in Plainfield. I mean, they adjust quick over there, but again, our issue is we have a lot of people want to talk to us, like Jeremy
Right, for
said.
the
It's,
assessors.
I don't want to listen to Josh's message or Jamie's message when they're on the phone with somebody else. I want to talk to them now. So they'll keep calling and keep getting transferred, and that's where, like Jeremy said, somebody saying, yes, I see them, but I can see on the phone they're on another line. And that'll alleviate a lot of those things that we're dealing with while we're trying to do the other things on the day.
Right, so the people that are actually using, I mean, the clerk and the treasurer and the superintendent that are in the building on a 40-hour-a-week and then some basis should be figuring out what the best flow is for this position. So I'm in support of that. I guess we're still kind of going back and forth on the vacation. I hear what you're saying, Steve, but in the same sense, I just think it would be tough for a lot of the other employees that have done transfers to have somebody else get.
how many employees
more
were
weeks
20-year,
vacation.
20-year people working for the township? I mean, how, Melinda worked at F&V, correct? That's what I'm hearing. so
And
that
she
was-
lost
was short.
vacation time when she transferred. She actually got less,
But now has sick time
but now has sick time,
and
correct?
personal days.
Right,
Yeah.
but
But still,
it wasn't an employee, township employee to township employee move.
right.
Let's just try it and see. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. That's why we said we want to
Is she
review
aware
it
that
if
it's
it's
a
going to
2-week?
grow out or
That
be
it's 2
something
weeks?
else.
Is she aware of that?
That what's 2 weeks?
That we're proposing 2 weeks
No,
vacation?
this is new.
Okay.
I don't think we're
We had to
proposing
have an
anything yet,
agreement
we're
to
having a
have something
discussion.
proposed.
yeah, we're still discussing.
I understand we're still discussing that, Steve. I just didn't know if anything had even been run by Helen, so.
I don't think so.
She knew what I had asked for from Nancy, and she knew where the job placement parts would be.
I mean, I guess if it was me, I would probably be speaking up and saying, okay, this is what I currently work. If you can't at least do this, I'm gonna have to seek other employment. I'm just saying that's me, because I have a budget, and I'm gonna need to know. So I just was wondering if any discussions had been held at all, so.
No.
Okay, all
Well,
right.
I think she's waiting for us to make the proposal because that's what this board has said. So anything
Right.
else would sound a little bit of with an attitude.
Yeah, well,
so
I mean,
I
she's
think-
also got bills to pay too, so.
Well, but she's currently being paid, so
Mm-hmm.
that isn't being quite the concern. But yeah, I mean, eventually I think she's expecting that we're going to be decisive and come up with a plan.
Great. Okay, so we beat this up pretty good. Does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the administrative services specialist position at the rate of step 3, 3 weeks of vacation, and all her time allowed by law to transfer for pensions and other items, as laid out in the board packet, with the exception being the percentage of time between administration clerk and treasurer to be 50% administrative, 20% for the clerk, 30% for the treasurer. Position to be managed fully by our superintendent.
Support by Cummings.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Cummings. And I'm sorry, there was a lot there. You're indicating step 3, which is the 1502. You're bumping up the vacation time to 3 weeks from what was proposed by Josh, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what else did you change that was proposed by Josh?
The percentages.
The
of
percentages
office.
of time
Okay.
and billing, basically, billed back to each department. 50 administration, 20% clerk, 30% treasurer.
With that 20 and 30 percentage, do the budgets for each of those departments still support that percentage?
We'll have to change those for next year's
I think
be an
Tammy,
amendment.
I think that's why Tammy asked me about the hours, and mine supports it.
Yes. I needed budgeting information to put in, so. And I believe Jamie has 10,000 budgeted in, with the 30%, it comes to $9,372.48 for wages wise.
The only thing, yeah, we might have to come back and ask, I did give her the hours and stuff that she requested. There's, for the seasonal position, there's like 3 months that I don't use the person at all unless we have, like somebody wants to take vacation during that time or training. So that might be the only thing that might bring it a little closer to the $10,000 if something like that happens. Or I might be able to make it up in a different month too, so that could happen too. And be all set.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Westworth, support by Mr. Cummings. Any further discussion?
Would that include, like if, let's say Helen doesn't take that position, that we would reevaluate that?
I would reevaluate that if Helen doesn't accept the position.
Right.
I would amend my motion to include that.
Okay, so to be reevaluated if Helen doesn't take. Okay, roll call, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I want to make sure I get that in there. All right. Mr. Palmer?
No.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay. Moving on to resolutions. First on is Resolution 2022-30, which is the resolution to set an alternate date for the July and December Board of Review.
So this was sent to me from our new assessor, and I spoke to Nancy about it just to make sure this wasn't something, because I don't recall doing these in the past. But it is something that they do to make sure they have alternate days in place.
All right, if something were to happen,
Right,
correct.
right. It just gives them an opportunity to hold for 2 alternate days, one in July and one in December.
Okay. All right, are there any questions then? Or is there a motion?
I move that we accept resolution 2022-30 for the December Board of Review.
Support.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire to approve Resolution 2022-30. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to Resolution 2022-31, which is the resolution declaring surplus property and improving the sale thereof of Kings Corner Road, which is vacant property. Are there any questions, or do you want to add anything to that?
No, it just needs to be approved as amended in the motion in the beginning of the meeting.
Great.
4.6 acres.
Thought it was 4.46.
It is.
4.46.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Okay, are there any questions then, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-31 with the amended sale of vacant land to be stated as 4.46 acres.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Ms. McGuire to approve Resolution 2022-31. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on then to the first read for the commercial marijuana facilities ordinance amendments. Nicole?
Okay, so I have some revisions here. It started out, we just needed to add the corridor business district as an allowed zoning district, because the corridor business district was finalized after we finalized the rec marijuana ordinance last year. So B2 is listed in there as an allowed zoning for adult use retail establishments. And there's still a few B2 parcels, but they're all on the north end of town. Janice Tire, Kmart, up in that area. So it all started by adding corridor business district, and when the attorney took a look at it, she found that there were some items that needed to be changed, mostly just some language as far as legalities, like the MCLs, things like that, and then also just the process that some of the items go through. So we took one area in there and took out that the board was to oversee it, whereas the planning commission can actually oversee it. So this has been through first read and public hearing at the planning commission. So I was just here to ask you to approve these amendments and move it on to the second and final read at your level.
Okay, are there any questions for Nicole for discussion?
Bill, any comments from your status on the planning commission?
I was involved in doing all this.
Okay.
So you're good with all of it, Bill?
Yeah, we've discussed this thoroughly at the planning commission level, and the bulk of well, in fact, all of the recommendations came from our attorney, so it's simply legalese that she's added to improve what we had. So I'm fine with all this.
All right, well, with that, I would move to approve the acceptance of these amendments and recommend this for a second and final read at our next regular scheduled meeting.
Support, Spencer.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion? All right, then a roll call.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschenbarth?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our other section. First on is the Harbor House ad.
All right, so we have our annual ad for the back of the chamber directory in the amount of $2,495 to be paid directly to Harbor House.
Can we change the picture? Is this the same picture we used last year?
Yes.
Same one on the website too, isn't it?
Yes.
It ties everything together.
I don't care, I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Fair enough.
I don't want to fight about it, okay? I mean, if you want to keep the same one, that's fine. I just thought it'd be nice to change it up a little.
Do you have one in mind?
No?
Oh.
How about one from the, like the sunrise on the pier or something like that?
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure how the color would come out in print, but
I'm
Be
sure
nicer.
that whichever photo that you choose will be more than sufficient.
oh, I get to choose?
As far as I'm concerned, yep.
I don't want that responsibility.
Be nice to have one with a few more people on the beach, but that's my thought.
I just thought maybe a different view, that's all.
Yeah,
We
I
could
mean, you could do
probably
beach.
address that next year before we have a deadline, if you want to look into putting
Sure.
something different.
Yeah,
We could come up with something.
okay. If everybody wants to do that.
We have lots of beautiful things to put a picture on it, so,
you mean for the next one,
yeah.
not
Yeah,
this one?
not this one, it would be
Right.
the
Yeah.
next one.
We don't want to hold
Okay.
up anything.
Yeah. Okay, and the amount is,
$2,495.
Is it the same every year?
Yes.
Okay.
You know how many years we've been doing
for as
this?
long as I can
A
remember.
I know
long
it's-
time.
It's been a long time.
The only
Which doesn't
difference now
necessarily mean
is,
much anymore. I don't
we
remember
no
very
longer
far, but-
pay for the dues to the chamber.
Last week?
We no longer what?
Pay for the dues to the chamber.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, is that because of this is some kind of trade out, or?
No.
Well, back in 2019, that board decided not to pay because our township board, our Oscoda Township was being charged the same amount, which was $2,495 on top of the $2,495 to Harbor House, when we were the highest charge for the membership to the chamber. So,
I'm just asking, because that question was posed to me the other day, so I'm glad to get that answer. Thank you.
All right, did you already do, I forgot already. Did you make a motion
I
already?
did not.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the Harbor House ad as submitted.
Support, Spencer.
I forgot to ask if you support. Sorry.
That's all right. I was waiting for you to make sure you were finished.
Yeah, no, I was finished. Just forgot the next line since I made it. All right, so there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Spencer to approve the ad as submitted. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes,
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to Michigan Certified Public Manager Conference,
okay,
or
so.
training, I should say.
You have before you a training flyer that I am requesting the board allow me to take. It's a 308-hour training and certification program. Half of it would be, there are 10 courses altogether. Half would be virtual. They're trying to do a hybrid, so half is virtual, half would be in person. Through Saginaw Valley State University. They cover city manager experience, communication, customer service, finance and budgeting management, and political advocacy, and there's a few other classes. The total cost is $2,995. Classes start in February and end in November. So it's spread out. The classes are full days, virtual and in person. And I think it would be great experience, and it does give credits towards a higher public manager certification as well.
Okay, are there any questions for Tammy on that?
yeah, when are the classes? I understand, 1 day a week, did you say?
No, they're one a month,
1 a month, I'm sorry.
yes,
And then is that going, so would that be during the day, I presume?
yes,
Take a day? Okay, fair
yes.
enough.
No, there
Once a
wouldn't
month.
be travel or anything like that. I go to Saginaw, but that's not something that anybody will have to pay for except for me, so.
Okay, any other questions, or is there a motion?
Well, I would I want to kind of piggyback off of Tammy. Under the participants thing, it says it's advantageous for public service workers, persons in leadership roles, and elected officials. Because of the budgeting and financial management, I was kind of also interested in doing the same program, but I think I need board approval for that expense.
Is that $2,900 per person?
Yes.
And this program specifically supports women in management positions.
Okay, well, do you have it within your budget?
No, that's why I have to ask for it.
Okay, so it'd be for 2022
23's.
or 2023?
Yeah.
So, all right,
Because it doesn't start till next year.
gotcha. Okay, well, we'll take them two separate motions, I would say. So, first,
Want them separate or all in one?
yes, no, it would be two
No,
separate.
separate.
'Cause there's two
I'll make a
separate
motion to approve the superintendent take the Michigan Certified Public Managers course through Saginaw Valley State University with all course fees to be paid by the township.
Support.
And I just want to make sure that, you know, Tammy gets enough time allowed to complete this training. I know in the past, there's a lot of fires that end up happening, and I just want to make sure that we are going to make sure that she gets this training and can attend. So, do you amend your motion for that?
Make her shut her phone off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think only she can do that, so I don't know.
It's my only comment, so I think it's value add.
I think Ms. Klein is able to manage her time on her own well enough to be able to take care of township business and take these classes.
Multitask.
All right, so there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire to approve the superintendent for these courses. Roll call, please.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried. Okay, I will make a motion to approve the treasurer's request to attend the same training.
support. Sutton?
Okay, so there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Sutton for to approve the treasurer's request. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to the bad debt write-off request.
Okay, so from time to time, we have properties that get sold through tax auction, that if there's any outstanding utility bills, we cannot collect on it and it needs to be written off. So this particular property had a balance of $264.88 that the water department is requesting to be written off because it was sold at a state auction.
I feel like I'm a broken record here, but there's
You are.
there's no way to go after these people for incurring a bill, and it's just on the taxpayers. Just sorry, ha 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 ha.
It
ha.
is, because it's foreclosure.
I've read it. It's
So we can't make an ordinance that says that if you put your name down, it's gonna follow you to the end of time until you pay it? I mean, that's what they did to
We-
me for everything.
It's in
yeah,
the
it's
state
law, just
MCL.
For when people used to lose them related to like Great Depression, terrible times, recessions, they take them back and they get that value and we get nothing.
I'll move to allow the write-off for 4733 Chippewa Avenue for $264.88.
Support, Sutton.
It's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve that bad debt write-off. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
No.
Ms. Richards,
Yes. Motion carried.
You vote
Make,
no on
you
your
make a motion
it's
on your, no on your own motion. That's a new one.
All right, the HUSHRA 2023 budget.
Okay. So before you, you are looking at the 2023 draft budget for Huron Shores Regional Utility Authority. As you can see towards the bottom, Oscoda has superseded its 49% part of usage. We are now at 51.56%.
Wow.
The usage at HUSHRA. Also, there is a new transfer under other at the bottom, towards the bottom, transfer to unrestricted replacement account. That money will be set aside, if approved, set aside for future and/or emergency capital improvement items. I think it's a pretty good idea to have that money, considering some things there are fairly pricey to replace, and it will be an annual thing, correct, Gav?
When you say annual, does that mean that the account is replenished to 50,000, or that we're going to add an additional 50,000, so if it's not spent, it continues to grow?
The intent is that each year the board will select an amount, if appropriate, to add to that account, and to continue to try to build some, savings, so that if a large item, whether it be a large capital expense that they don't want to have to take down fund balance for, or if there were an emergency, that they would have sort of a rainy day fund to be able to do that. Because right now that they do have, savings, but we are working our way down through the available balance at each year that they have appropriated, $250,000 or $300,000 to help supplement the revenue from the member communities in order to try to keep, the rates in all the communities somewhat level. But as, the system is aging, things are now reaching the 30-year age on a lot of the appurtenances. And if you look at the CIP, the capital improvement plan and the maintenance plan, you can see that those costs are going to start escalating. And that some of those large items may be coming up and really impacting the budget in the future. So this could kind of dampen those, and kind of level out the budget a little bit going forward.
So you're looking to use this money as kind of a compensation to the budget, or as an emergency fund separate from the budget to be spent by the board in case?
It's a little bit of both. So that was the thing, is that it could be for planned or unplanned items. So for example, coming up could be, like a large rehab project for a tank or something like that, that could significantly impact what the capital budget would be for that year, and this could kind of be used to help level out those capital budgets so that there's not spikes in the annual budget amounts for each of the member communities.
So this $50,000 that you're proposing here would be just for Oscoda's infrastructure, or would it be for the board in general to
It's for
spend
Huron
wherever?
Shores all, and that 50,000 would be apportioned across, just like the rest of the budget
Oh,
is.
so this is not, that's the total, but our percentage would be 51.56% of the 50,000?
Well, actually, yes, because there, every year that you are contributing at the percentage of usage, and so ultimately, any monies that are in that budget are apportioned appropriately. So the 50,000 that they're talking about is from revenue that was, from this year that was not spent. For example, we had a planned painting project for the building that came in significantly under what the budgeted amount was, so there was a little bit of money left at the end of the budget, and that was what the seed would be, is that money that was already in the 2022 budget would be used to start that fund, and then going forward, if monies were available, when the budget was set at the end of the year, if there was money available, it could be added to that account. So it wouldn't be an individual line item. It's not part of the amount that is set to be, invoiced to each of the member communities. It would be taken out of reserves at the end of the year and then potentially added to that account.
So it's effectively a slush fund?
Not really slush, but a rainy day fund would be, because
A lot of water jokes.
it's a lot of, yeah.
To me, the more important number is the way the percentage is set is by usage. So in that 250,000 gallons, how much of that is loss that we're still not identifying and fixing?
Yeah, and that's something that we've been working with the township on, and actually, I was gonna talk to Tammy. I saw a different vendor besides Emmy Simpson that does leak detection. They use a different technology, because obviously the last leak detection study wasn't very fruitful for the amount of money that you spent. For that, you didn't get very much return on investment as far as finding any significant sources of water loss. So we continue to be aggressive as we do all of our rounds out in the township, keeping our eyes open for anything that is a leak. The new meter systems are going to be helpful to, track on an individual residential basis, especially, if there are meter pits
that are there, that if there was a leak between the house and the meter pit, that would be captured by some of that technology. We can data log some of that stuff. I know that the utility committee has talked before about the potential for adding additional master meters, but there are other technologies that may be less expensive to deploy.
I guess, Catherine, what we're looking for is, we need a plan from F&V to fix these water losses, and that needs to be presented to the board. That's where I'm at. I mean, I misspoke. It's not 250,000 gallons, it's 250 million gallons of water. And I'd really like to know, of that 250 million gallons of water a year, how much of that is lost? Have we reduced it at all, or is it still going up?
I don't know that it's still going up. I don't have the figures in front of me. I know that is something that is tracked, the amount of water that is billed to the users versus what is purchased from here on shore. But within the township itself, you know, we have found that there have been leaks that have come to the surface after many years, because of being on sandy soils, that, you know, we don't have the ability to just predict where a leak is until we see something come to the surface or we find some unusual
But there's
usage in
equipment
the
out there
area.
that you can recommend, and processes that you can put in place, whether or not they're in the contract at all. But I'm looking at you as our operator to come to this board to give us some solutions and some remedies.
As I said, I've been going to approach Tammy with some information from an equipment vendor that does deploy different technology to try to find water leaks in your system.
I'll
And they've done
be-
it with some larger systems that have been very successful, but obviously it's going to be a cost-benefit analysis on the part of the township as to, you know, what type of, you know, revenues you want to put toward trying to track down this lost water.
Until we see a plan, I couldn't tell you, but I hope this is going to be a priority and this comes to the board sooner than later, because we've been talking about this as long as I've been on the board. And we talk around it, and I don't really see us doing any real actions to remedy the situation. So I would like that Tammy as a priority for something to come back to this board so we can discuss.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna ask the question. I know we're at 51, or it says that we're, for 2023, we're projected at 51.56 of the water use of all of
That
Hushman. Is
was, that
what it-
was for November of 2021 through October of 2022. We
Okay.
were at 51%.
And my question, I guess, was, is that because obviously we added a lot more water services, but could it be lost as well? I mean,
Like I said, I don't have the loss figures in
Okay.
front of me, but it is something that we track with the utility billing clerk.
right. Because, I mean, if you know how much you're charging us, we should know what we're billing for. It seems like it should be an easy
It is,
report.
it's a spreadsheet that's maintained, but I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I just had one question about the transfer from fund balance. Do we know what the total fund balance is?
I'd have to look at the financial reports from the last board packet, which I don't have in front of me.
Okay, so I was just curious since we're gonna be using 250,000 out of that. Okay. Projected. Thank you.
Okay, so are you presenting this budget that you need us to approve? Okay. Any further discussion, or is there a motion to approve the budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the Huron Shores Regional Utility Authority 2023 budget as presented.
Okay, is there support?
Support by Cummings.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings to approve the Hushra 2023 budget as presented. A roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wushtabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the auto dialer update. Thanks, Kath.
I think the auto dialer update is in limbo because we're waiting to see what the county's going to do. They're purchasing a system for this, and where they're or they may allow us to piggyback on their system so that we don't have an expenditure, but we still get to utilize all the emergency messages through that system.
Excellent.
So we're just kind of waiting to see what they're gonna do, and then if they come back with a yes, then we're set, and if not, then we'll continue our own digging.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks
Was
for
there
the
an
update.
ETA?
Did they give us an ETA,
You
Tammy?
said, it wouldn't be ready till like the end of November through December. I don't know what their process is, but, it would definitely be cost effective if we can piggyback off their emergency.
No, sure. I was just wondering when they were going to make a decision. ETA, so.
They've made
sounds
a
like it-
decision,
within
it's
the-
setup time,
I see.
yes.
Yeah, they're building it up.
So we're waiting for them to build it for us to figure out whether or not it'll work for us?
Well, the suggestion was that we could wait for them to have their system set up and completed, or do our own, out on our own. I did contact the same company that they are using. Their prices are much better,
Sure.
but if we can save some money, that would be the better route to go.
Oh, no,
So,
fair enough.
just
I'm
depends on
just-
how fast we want it done.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'm just saying, it sounded like we were waiting. Now it sounds like we're waiting for this to be implemented before we actually get information about what the feature is, of the system is, and whether it's something we really
It's
would like to
actually
consider.
very nice. I think Melinda sent you the demo for that her and I sat through a demo through, it's called Rave Alerts.
Uh-huh.
And setup seems to be fairly simple
Okay.
from what we saw. Like, Mike Eller was saying that in a meeting, but different meeting, he had said that, so the Forestry Service is going to be setting up through them also. So if you want to be notified when there's a prescribed burn, you just sign up for it. And anytime they have a prescribed burn, you'll get a text message letting you know.
Right.
So, sounds real easy. Just, he said
So yeah.
implementation was gonna,
And I think
Be
that the,
what took the
the
longest.
reason that that the county is talking about allowing us to use it is because emergency messages through the system are no additional charge.
Right.
The burning stuff that she's talking about, they're gonna have to pay per message because it's not an emergency. But for the emergency services, they will send those messages at no additional fee. And I think that if we have to purchase it ourselves, it was gonna be just under 5K per year. So, and that gives us, what was it, like 50,000 messages, you
for
said?
the first year, you get 50,000 messages.
Yeah.
The second year, you pay the $4,500.
45, yeah.
And if you want those extras, it costs by the message. But if it's strictly for emergencies, it's the straight 4,500 a year. So it's strictly for emergency. Unless you want extra, then you pay for the extra.
Yeah, and I think we're waiting on the county to set it up because it's all based on, for the emergency setup, they need to break us into chunks so that we don't send out an emergency message to people that aren't in the area that's affected. So they're setting all those things up so that Tammy can pick and choose which areas get these emergency messages, or all of them.
Okay, so, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a little confused. We started off, the report was that we had made a decision and we were waiting instead for the county to make a decision.
No,
or
to
implement
implement.
In this month. But it sounds like, from what you just said, this last sentence, was that the committee's made a decision, or?
No,
we're
the
moving in that
decision,
direction?
as far as I know, the
'Cause I
the
hear
decision is.
implementation here is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the county is implementing
No, I
it.
mean,
They've made their
they're
decision, they're
sep-
implementing it. We want to see it, and whether or not they're going to let us use it for free, and then we'll make ours.
And then I heard the point about implementing separate sections.
Yes.
So is that being implemented? You said they're doing.
I apologize, I'm assuming that that's what their holdup is, because they have to, you don't want to send out, I mean, if you're going to sign up for message alerts, then, you know, if they have one big company that takes care of all this stuff, then we don't want messages about burning in South Carolina, or in Texas, or in California, so they have to set grouping in order for these to be set, and we're gonna have to sit down and talk to them, but we're waiting for the county to implement what they're gonna do, so that we can see what they've done, and then if it's gonna work for us, where we can utilize their system and not pay additional fees, that's great. But if it's not going to work, then we have to go back to the drawing board. And so, yes, the county is implementing their stuff right now, and then we will see it. I don't believe that they're implementing anything for us yet, because we haven't officially said,
Good.
yes, we will take your services, because, well, the board hasn't voted on it. So.
Yeah, that's presumptuous, exactly. Okay.
Okay, all right, thanks for the update. moving on to the Lake State Railway.
Okay, so I received an email late, after the packet information had gone out. It is from Lake State Railway. They are looking for a letter of support for the grant that they are trying to obtain. The grant is for upgrades of the railway system from Pinconning to Alpena. And they would like us the township to write a letter of support, if at all possible. It's gonna greatly improve the infrastructure. The township board has previously, in the past, I know, supported Lake State Railway, and I think it would be a great idea to support. So hopefully, maybe someday, as Jeremy had requested, we have a depot somewhere, maybe
Oh,
a Sobel.
that's
or
my point. They're
Oscoda.
talking about, we feel several factors regarding this grant opportunity are impactful to Oscoda Township, and that's why we support it. An efficient rail system will continue to provide increasing benefit to manufacturing companies. There's no depot scheduled to be in Oscoda. An efficient rail system can play a major factor in attracting new businesses in the area. There's no depot in Oscoda. Continues on. I'm okay with writing the letter if the board so chooses.
But there are
But they're not
potential-
giving us anything.
But-
They're gonna drive right through town again, and they're talking about all this wonderful benefit to get this letter, of which we get nothing.
But what you're missing is you've got the railway running by the old base, and it's very easy to put the spur back in for all the potential businesses.
They're
out
not
there.
gonna take it out, they're just upgrading it, and that's great, but they're not talking about, why don't we have a plan for that then?
You
If
won't
we've got all
have
the,
a
if they're
plan
talking about
for the
doing all of
spur
this
until you have
expansion,
businesses out there who are gonna demand services. But at least you have the railway coming through the township, which is, in my mind, key for large items.
And I would say, based on the improvement they made to F-41 and that railroad crossing,
Yes.
I'm all in favor of.
Yes.
Absolutely, right
I
there.
agree.
Shatter your
I'm
teeth
just
anymore.
irritated that
Yeah.
they're talking about passenger trains and whatnot. Oh, I would love to hop on an Amtrak to Kansas City from Oscoda. And all it takes is for them to put a little platform in there and stop the train. But they don't want to do that yet. So I would move that we write the letter to the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railway Administration, in support of the railway upgrades.
Support Worcester Barth.
The letter's already written.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Any further, I guess I just had I was gonna ask a question, but, are all the bullet points, are those suggestions that they wanted in the letter? I
Yes.
guess? Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Worcester to approve the, draft letter as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes. Motion carried. All right, moving on to the second public comment section of the agenda. Again, you do not need a comment card to speak, and it doesn't have to be on an agenda item. I'm going to start over here. Anybody in the first column or section? I guess it's not really a column. I'm going to call it a column, yeah. All right, now I'm in the middle section. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, so so there's two. Okay, since you're already standing. Head on over, Pam.
Oh, theme music.
Is that Rocky?
yeah.
Sorry, everything is, oh no,
Oh, now it won't stop. It won't.
technical difficulties. Everything is so serious that I just wanted a little smile from everybody tonight. I'm Pam Lovelace. I am a wife, mother, grandmother, business owner, developer, breast cancer awareness advocate. And I wanted to speak to everyone. Last month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I found a lump. In finding that lump, I went directly into diagnostic, mammogram, ultrasound, biopsy. It took a week and a half to get an answer back because St. Joseph's Hospital lost their pathologist. so it had to go off to Flint. I say all these things because it's so important for people to do self-exams. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have caught it. And I went to I gotta get this acronym right, ABWA meeting, and at that meeting, one of their featured speakers was I'm gonna give it her name, Annette Dennis, imaging specialist for the Alcona Health Center. She was speaking on a brand new 3D imaging mammogram machine that we have there. And I wanted to make sure that the community knew that that was there. I didn't know it was there. My doctor didn't know it was there.
Wow.
The hospital doesn't even have one. So we have a life-saving piece of equipment in our community that all the women need to know about, and some men, because men can get breast cancer as well. So I just wanted to make sure that that information gets out to the community, because every single day counts. I am going to Alpena tomorrow, to their cancer center, to see if I can get in to surgery quicker, because through St. Joseph, I can't get in till the end of December. That's too long. So again, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody is really getting that information out, because it really matters. And that's all I wanted to say. Oh, no, there's one more thing I wanted to say. How's my time?
You're good.
Minute
Okay.
34 seconds.
So my company is having a grand opening December 16th, and it is by invitation only. So this opening is going to be geared towards all the business owners, the board members, the state, federal representatives, agency representatives, and investors are coming. So I really appreciate it if you would all come, because I will be outlining my complete vision for Oscoda and everything that I have been putting in place. So I just want to let you know that, and to please watch your emails for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it'll be catered by the E.
Anybody else on I think you saw, Kelly, or Kathy after that.
Sorry, I didn't prepare any music. Hopefully my content will be interesting enough to keep your attention. Kelly Brown, Oscoda, I already spoke to you earlier. A couple of things that I wanted to ask. That pumper truck, is there any discussion of getting a ladder truck instead with the 4-story
No.
We did
hotel?
discuss.
Can the pumper truck, like, get the people off the roof if it catches on fire?
No.
Okay, check. You guys mentioned about the water loss update, so I was just running some numbers, because I remember in the summer there was a discussion about a 40% number. I don't know if that was like just 1 month or overall, but so I did the calculations, and if you took the numbers that are currently listed in the packet, subtracted out the 40% potential as a loss, we don't obviously know what it is, but let's just round the numbers. Our participation as a total of the whole goes down from 51.5 to 38 if you take out a potential loss. So it is critical that we figure out where this loss is. And if F&V needs to be supplemented, or you guys need to research a specialist, but I think you really got to put this on the agenda for every single meeting until it's resolved. This is huge. I mean, to go from over half, and I don't know what our rates are, if they change based on volume, but if that water loss is up that high, we have a huge problem, you know, and the taxpayers are footing the bill. So I think that's really important. You guys were talking about this position you were creating, and Jamie, I think you brought it up, and Ann mentioned it as well. It's not about the person, it's about creating a new position, because you guys are trying to negotiate on behalf of who you think is going to fill it. But I'm assuming this position gets posted somewhere. Aren't all governmental positions supposed to be open posts? So the position should really be created for anyone that applies. And I understand you might go back and revise it if Helen's not the person, but I just think you're backing into it instead of going in forward. So I just wanted to comment on that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and interestingly enough, I was reading your Redevelopment Ready Communities Best Practices. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read that since we got our certification this summer, but interestingly enough, because I'm a big advocate of social media, this is what it says. Public participation is the process by which a community consults with interested or affected stakeholders before making a decision. And then it goes on and talks about, a public participation plan is essential. So then I'm like, where's that plan? So I found it, the public participation plan, and I highlighted all my little special things, which I won't bore you with. But one things that kind of really caught my attention is that it talks about support and encourage continuous improvement in the methods used to meet the public's need for information and involvement. Public information and involvement methods are continually evolving. The municipality is committed to seeing new and innovative ways to engage and keep the public involved throughout the process. But yet, you guys removed Zoom and you removed Facebook. So and this is March of 2022. There's no Q&A. I sent an email off about the position to the subcommittee people. I'm sure all 4 of you got it. But I didn't hear anything back about it. So we don't engage in Q&A when we're at our open forum. We send an email, and sometimes we get them back, a response, or sometimes we don't. But how are we supposed to communicate and have a dialogue is what I would love to hear somebody. If anybody wants to have a dialogue, I'm open for it in my last 17 seconds.
Thank you.
Nobody? Okay. Thank you.
Great. Yep, Kathy?
All right, Kathy Woosterbarth. I wanted to talk about the Restoration Advisory Board. We have an upcoming meeting this Wednesday on the 16th at 5 o'clock at the United Methodist Church. At 4 o'clock, there'll be a poster session before that. I wanted to bring up multiple issues. First was making a point about the slip lining of the stormwater system that was on the agenda today. That has been an issue for Tim and Bill years?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
Okay. So if you look at that issue, just that one issue alone, you can see how the Air Force will kick the can down the road as long as they can for an issue. That's just one example. So I'd like to move on to our wastewater treatment plant issue that we have that I feel is very significant related to the health of our environment and ourselves. And I'd really like to encourage the township to look at this issue a little different than we did the stormwater sewer issue. I have multiple questions for the township related to the last presentation from F&V. There were next steps that were listed there, and that presentation was done in September. Okay, now here we are 2 months later, and I don't know what the updates are on what those next steps were. It was related to, maybe finding some quotes for some cleanouts, and there's 5 different steps related to that. I would really like to see that update from, F&V. I know Rick and Catherine are still here, actually, but that wasn't on the agenda. But what I'd like to see, again, actually almost to Kelly's point, that maybe have an F&V project update as a standing agenda item. Because there are so many significant things happening related to those services, I do believe it needs to be a standing agenda item, especially with the wastewater treatment plant. The other thing that I'd like to ask about is, has anyone talked to the Air Force about this report that FNV actually gave us? I did see something that the Cherokee Federal group was forwarded that information, and I believe they're a contractor of the Air Force, so maybe they got it kind of inadvertently. But it would be, I think, proactive on our part to reach out to the Air Force to ask about that and to make sure that they got it. I know that Tim is forwarding it to the Air Force, but we need to be proactive in ensuring that they have the information that we as a township receive. I would like to ask that this particular issue have a work session created around it that includes F&V, our engineer, Rick Freeman, the Eagle, and potentially the Air Force. Now, if you ask Eagle for a work session, they will come and they will give you lots of information, and I really encourage you to do that. So I guess those are my two asks. Make sure that this project is on the agenda every meeting, and that you have a work session so that the entire board and all of those interested parties can be at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Come on. Oh, there it goes.
JD?
It's weird being on this side. JD Hawk, broadcaster extraordinaire. Taking off my hat, putting on my Shoreline Players hat. Do not, and I repeat, do not miss this weekend's performance of Nonsense. Behind that curtain is a beautiful set, and there are several people that are portraying some really, really funny nuns. And it's happening this weekend. Tickets are available not only at the box office, but now online at shorelineplayers.org. You can actually purchase your tickets online and just come on to the show, have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, JD. All right, so with that, that concludes our public comment section for this meeting agenda. Moving on to board comments. Do any board members have public comment? I'll look to my left. Mr. Palmer?
I would echo Ms. Worcesterbar's comments about our wastewater treatment plant and the sediment beds. We had a presentation given to us. I think that's a very important issue that needs to be addressed. F&V did a very extensive report on sources of PFAS that are going into our lagoon system. And like Kathy said, we haven't heard a follow-up report on that. I don't know whether, we operate that under a permit through Eagle, and Eagle is the one that ordered us to do that investigation through F&V. And so I would assume that F&V has sent that report on to Eagle. Catherine is nodding yes, which I assume they would do. Whether or not that's been shared with the Air Force is the next question that I would like to have answered, if they're aware of where that contamination coming to our lagoon system, and if we've heard anything from the Air Force in terms of maybe at Wednesday's RAB meeting there will be a discussion of that, I hope. That's all.
Steve, did you have anything?
Yeah, just to echo the work session, I think we had one scheduled to discuss the lagoon. It was at the last financial work session, but we ran out of time and we didn't get to it, so I think it's still an agenda item for a future work session. I'd like to make sure we have that next scheduled one. That's all.
That's it. I have a couple things. First of all, the Oscoda Township Treasurer's Office is a drop-off spot for the Stuff the Boo Boo bus for the Osco Humane Society. They're doing a fundraising thing. They have a list of different items that they're looking for people to donate to the Humane Society, and with the gas prices and different things like that, or if you just don't want to drive down to the Humane Society or the other locations to drop things off, please feel free to do so. We will be taking the things back down to the Humane Society this Saturday. So you have till Friday, 5 o'clock to be able to do that. The other thing that I wanted to share, and hopefully JD, you guys can get a close-up maybe, but it's a resources for veterans, active duty military and their families of different things. I have a couple flyers with information and phone numbers on it for them to reach out to different things, and I will have these available in the treasurer's office on the bookcase and also at the VFW itself on the board, and they'll have that information that they can share if anybody needs it. And thank you to all the veterans. I know Veterans Day was last Friday, and so I just wanted to thank them all for their service.
Thank you. Okay, looking to my right. Cummings, did you have anything?
I do.
Okay.
Not to be repetitive, but I think it's worth repeating that, yes, there is a Air Force RAB meeting this Wednesday night. It will be starting at 5 o'clock, and there is a pre-session for that in the afternoon. I wanted to it's located at the United Methodist Church, directly behind Township Hall. So I wanted to point something out about this particular upcoming meeting that is concerning to me. And it's right in line with the conversations that a number of board members and myself have had about the Air Force kicking the can down the sidewalk, street, metaphor of your own choosing. We've been very concerned about the wastewater lagoon and the seepage beds. It's been a discussion for some time. We've asked them to address this concern, and this was presented back over the summer. This particular topic is going to be on this particular meeting, this RAB meeting coming up, and I will tell you that in the pre-release version of the meeting notes, we see that the topic is there on page 9. And then on page 12, this slide that is entitled specifically about wastewater lagoon and seepage beds indicates that this particular topic has data gaps that must be filled. Now, it doesn't mean that data gaps are something that you're missing data. It doesn't mean in this particular case that we don't know what data is missing. I'm sure that's part of the conversation. But it's part of my intention here with the public that you should come to this meeting. You should be involved online. And you should be making sure that you know what the Air Force has to say when that slide comes up. Because it is extremely possible that this is going to be another incident of kick the can down the road. This topic of the wastewater lagoons is incredibly important to this township. And we, as a township, are going to have to get our heads wrapped around how this issue is going to either get funded, fixed, or whatever. It is not something that we have an answer to yet, and I know that we've asked the Air Force to pay for it and to consider what it is that, how to remediate the problem. So my point to you all is participate. Join the meeting, find out, listen, and in particular, pay attention to what the Air Force has to say and how they say that during this meeting. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Jeremy, did you have anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Josh?
I just wanted to say we had a great election last week and wanted to thank all of our citizens who volunteered to help with the election. It was amazing. We actually got done before Tawas. Oscoda is the biggest area for elections, so in getting that done with 6 machines and all the tabulation and beating Tawas and also having that in and checked in 20 minutes. There was a lot of training and a lot of dedication from our people who signed up. I mean, right to the end, we had people coming in. We've even added more for the upcoming election seasons that are coming up, but I just wanted a big thank you to everybody who helped do that. And I would encourage anybody to do that, even elected officials. I think it's a beautiful thing, especially in the world today when you can put an equal amount of Republicans and Democrats in a room for a whole day. And our only service there for that whole day is to make sure that all of our citizens can come in and vote. And it's just a beautiful thing. I enjoy it every year. It just kind of gives me those feels and makes me remember why I ran for this position. So just a big thank you to all of those who helped, and all those who would like to join can sign up in my office.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. I guess I had a couple things, I'm just gonna make comments on, Pam, a couple of the public comment things. Pam, I appreciate you sharing that personal information, in regarding to getting the word out. Obviously wish you all the best in regard to your treatment and all of that. And I would note, you mentioned the, 3D mammography that is in the Alcona Health Center that is in downtown Oscoda, in case anybody didn't understand where that location is. So that is a great resource in our community. And Annette Dennis has been a big advocate in the community in regard to cancer awareness and everything else. So thank you for bringing that up. Kelly, you mentioned in regard to the pumper truck. I guess I would just, I'm speaking on my own behalf on this one, and just relaying that I know that Bill Duquette, which is the head of the fire department and the Tawases, and our chief, actually talked about this in length and didn't, you know, they're not recommending that we get, a ladder truck. So, I mean, that being said, I was at a friend's apartment in downtown Detroit on the 22nd floor. A fire evacuation was called. I had to go down 22 flights of stairs. When I got to the bottom, I can tell you that there was not a ladder truck that could have gone up 22 flights to save me. So, I mean, I understand what people are saying in regard to a 4-story building, but we have buildings in Detroit, New York, that are far bigger than 4 stories that we don't have a ladder truck to get to. So, again, I think some serious discussions were had by Bill Duquette and Chief McGregor in regard to this topic. So, it wasn't just taken lightly. And then I think you also mentioned the RRC communication, or, you know, in communication. You know, we get a lot of questions sometimes, and I know that I've been directed not necessarily to answer, that everything needs to be funneled through our clerk, because they are he is the FOIA coordinator on information, just so that we're all giving the proper information and not sharing things that we should or shouldn't. So maybe people don't respond because we've been advised to not respond directly, that all that has to go through the clerk's office. So maybe that's why you didn't get a response, I'm not sure. So I just wanted to point that out. And I guess that's all I have. So thank you very much. And I obviously went in to vote. There was a ton of people working. And I mean, they actually had to spoil my ballot. I don't know what I did wrong, but I had to put a new one in. But everybody was super friendly, and, you know, it was a good atmosphere. So super disappointed. I guess I just say I wish the county would have passed the millage. Don't know what we're gonna do in regard to that. Hopefully they can figure it out in the next run, but yeah, very shocked that that didn't pass. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn at 9:03.
So moved.